Hello, this video is in continuation with part 1 where we had discussed activities 2.1 to 2.7 of NCERT book class 10. Now we'll continue with activity 2.8 till the last activity of the book, which is 2.15. Now, this activity, let us talk about this activity wherein we have taken a beaker and in it two nails are inserted in the cork, in a rubber cork, and an electrical setup is done. The electrical circuit has been made wherein the battery is placed and a bulb is placed with a switch. Right now, in this beaker, we are using different solutions, and we'll see whether the bulb will glow or not, whether the electric current passes through this circuit or does not pass. So if we look at activity 2.8, here they are saying that we have to take HCl, glucose, alcohol, hydrochloric acid and sulfuric acid. These are the four solutions which we are going to fill in this beaker one by one. Right, so we'll see that in this beaker, when we are filling glucose and alcohol, the electric bulb will not glow, whereas when we put in this beaker hydrochloric acid and sulfuric acid, the bulb will glow. Now the reason which is very importantly asked in board examination, what is the reason behind glucose and alcohol not showing the passage of electric current, whereas hydrochloric acid and sulfuric acid showing the passage of electric current? The reason being, hydrochloric acid like HCl dissociates into when an electric current is passed through it. I am writing EC for electric current, and it is a reversible reaction. The forward arrow and as well as backward arrow is put, so it dissociates into H ion and Cl ion. Similarly, H2SO4 reversible reaction, EC for electric current, dissociate into 2H ion and SO4 2 negative ion. Now this dissociation of ions lead to the conduction of electricity. The flow of ions, the flow of electrons is actually the electric current, is actually the cause of electric current, and because these ions are produced and these ions are due to loss or gain of electrons being produced, they are the reason why the bulb here glows. Now, in case we are taking glucose, the formula of glucose is C6H12O6 and that of alcohol is C2H5OH. These, when an electric current is passed through it, they do not dissociate into ions. And once they do not dissociate into ions, none of the electric current will flow through the beaker and this bulb is not going to glow. Right? So any substance which dissociate into ions will allow the passage of electric current through it and the bulb will glow. Now coming on to activity 2.9 of your book. Activity 2.9 is again very interesting experiment wherein we have taken sodium chloride and then from the conical flask concentrated H2SO4 is poured onto sodium chloride. Now when H2SO4 and sodium chloride are made to come in contact, NaCl, which is sodium chloride, and H2SO4 is sulfuric acid, what happens? Na2SO4 is formed along with the formation of HCl. Right? Now this HCl gas will be evolved. Now we can see in this figure, in second figure, that after pouring this sulfuric acid, they have corked the test tube, the boiling tube. Right? Now the cork is placed so that none of the gas been produced here escapes out. All the gases pass through this delivery tube. Now two conditions are taken. The meaning of the activity is making you understand two conditions in this process. Now what is happening? We have taken sulfuric acid, which is concentrated, and sodium chloride is taken in the solid form. We can see here it is written in the activity that sodium chloride is taken in the solid form. Now when solid sodium chloride is taken and concentrated sulfuric acid is made to come in contact with this solid NaCl, dry HCl will be produced. And when a litmus paper is brought near it, or a dry litmus paper is brought near it, what will happen? No change in color will be observed. I've already told you an analogy that ABR, that means acids turn blue to red. Now when a dry litmus paper is brought near the mouth of this delivery tube, no change in color is seen. Whereas when we bring a moist blue litmus paper near the mouth of this delivery tube, we see that the blue litmus paper turns red in color, showing that water is essential for the litmus to show its test. Not only the litmus to show its test, rather water is essential for any acid to show its activity, to show that it is acidic in nature. Now we can also see here that calcium chloride is taken in a guard tube, right? So why are we taking this calcium chloride whenever there is moisture in the climate, the humidity is more in the climate, and then the gas which is produced here or the litmus paper which we have taken will automatically become moist. In that case, we need to use calcium chloride, which acts as a dehydrating agent. Dehydrating agent is something which absorbs all the water molecule, and therefore the gas evolved here becomes dry. And again, when dry HCl is produced and a dry litmus paper is brought near it, no change in color is observed, which means that acids do show their acidity only in presence of water. If water is not present, no hydronium ions are formed. Now, how are these hydronium ions formed? H ion from any acid react with water to form H3O plus, which are hydronium ion. And until and unless these hydronium ions are present, acids would not show their activity. They will not show their acidic behavior. Now, moving ahead on activity 2.10. Here this activity is about diluting a concentrated sulfuric acid solution. Now, let us first of all see this warning signal, figure 2.5, which is a warning signal. It shows that when it is dropped onto hand or it is dropped onto paper or any cloth, it burns. This means that one has to handle sulfuric acid with utmost care. We cannot misuse or mishandle sulfuric acid. It is very concentrated and a corrosive acid, whereby we need to protect ourselves while we are dealing with sulfuric acid. Now, activity 2.10 is all about diluting concentrated sulfuric acid. In previous video also I have shown you how to dilute a concentrated sulfuric acid. Whenever concentrated sulfuric acid is to be diluted, we do not put water into acid. Rather, acid is poured by the sides of the test tube into water, right? So that all the heat which is released when acid and water mix together is absorbed throughout the volume of water, and it is distributed throughout, and slowly and gradually the heat is evolved, it passes off, and then we dilute the solution, the sulfuric acid. Whenever we need to dilute it, we always pour sulfuric acid into water and not water into sulfuric acid. This is highly exothermic reaction. They're asking whether the reaction is exothermic or endothermic. Exothermic, children, as you already know, that is a reaction in which heat is evolved. So whenever sulfuric acid is poured in water, a large amount of heat is evolved, which makes this beaker very hot, right? So likewise, not only sulfuric acid is an exothermic reaction. Whenever we try to dilute or make a solution of sodium hydroxide pellets, it is always available in the pellets. If you look in the laboratory, the sodium hydroxide is available in small pellets. So these sodium hydroxide are in solid state. When they are dissolved in water, again a lot of heat is evolved. So this reaction not only is the reaction of diluting of sulfuric acid, exothermic reaction, diluting of or making a solution of pellets of sodium hydroxide in the solid state to solution is also highly exothermic reaction. Now, moving ahead with activity 2.11. Now, this activity 2.11 is to test the pH of various solutions. Now, we have taken different solutions which are given in table 2.2. Saliva before meal. Saliva before meal has a pH of 7.4. It is quite neutral in nature. After meal it depends what kind of meal we have taken. If we have taken green leafy vegetables, it becomes alkaline, and if we have taken acidic a meal like meat or something, so the saliva become acidic in nature. After meal depend upon the kind of meal we have taken, but before the meal is taken, the saliva is 7.4. Right? 7.4 means that its nature is neutral. Right? Then we have colorless aerated drink, which is 1. The pH is 1. So the nature of solution, we know that this is neutral in nature. This 7 is neutral in nature, and towards this side is acidic and towards this side is basic. So colorless aerated drink have the pH 1, means they are highly acidic in nature, like Limca, Sprite, they are highly acidic in nature. Carrot juice is mildly acidic, its pH is 6. Coffee is also mildly acidic, its pH is 4.5. Tomato is also mildly acidic, its pH is 4.3. Tap water the pH ranges from 6 to 8.5, means it ranges from slightly acidic to slightly alkaline. 1 molar NaOH is strongly alkaline or strongly basic, and the pH of this solution is 14. HCl is highly acidic, whose pH is 0. One should know these pHs. Then moving ahead to activity 2.12. Now in this activity we are supposed to test the acidic or basic behavior of soil. We know that plants grow well in optimum pH. The pH should be of the range 5.5 to 7.5, whereby this universal indicator paper is green in color. If we check the pH of our backyard, if we find that the universal indicator paper turns green, it means that the pH is 5.5 to 7.5, and it is this pH is said to be very good for the optimum growth of the plant. In case we are using a lot of fertilizers, sometimes the soil become acidic, and in that case we need to sprinkle some basic solution like calcium oxide. And in case it becomes acidic, we need to use organic fertilizers like compost. Then moving ahead to another activity, which is activity 2.13 of your book. 2.13 is about the salts, about the family of salts. Now we have a different variety of salts. The book says that we have taken potassium sulfate, which is K2SO4, sodium sulfate, which is Na2SO4, sodium sulfate, then calcium sulfate, which is CaSO4, then magnesium sulfate, MgSO4, copper sulfate, CuSO4, NaCl, sodium chloride, NaNO3, sodium nitrate, Na2CO3, sodium carbonate, NH4Cl, which is ammonium chloride. Now what kind of acid and bases they are made up of? Now, when we see that the negative part of it is sulfate, we understand that the acid used is sulfuric acid. It cannot be any other acid, it can be sulfuric acid. So here also this belongs to the same family, which is sulfate family, and sulfuric acid is the acid from which it is composed of. Similarly, CaSO4 is composed of H2SO4. MgSO4 also has acid component as H2SO4. All of these are the strong acids. Just mean to say that sulfuric acid is a strong acid. Likewise, here we can see NaCl has the negative component Cl, which is HCl, it is again a strong acid. NaNO3 has the acid component HNO3 nitric acid, again a strong acid. Na2CO3 has H2CO3, which is a weak acid. One should know what the names of the examples of the strong acids and the weak acid. Again in NH4Cl we see that HCl is a component which is a strong acid. Now looking at the positive component of this salt, it is KOH. K is for KOH, NaOH, CaOH whole twice, MgOH whole twice, CuOH whole twice, NaOH, 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 and NH4OH. Now let us see the strength of these acids. This is a strong base. This is a strong base. This is a weak base. This is a weak base. This is a weak base. Strong base, strong base, strong base, and a weak base. I suggest you to learn the examples of strong and weak bases. Now, if they are saying in this activity 2.13 to find the family of various salts. So, if we find the family of the family of sodium salt, the sodium salt, the examples of sodium containing salts are, this belongs to the sodium family. Then we have this also belonging to the sodium family. This is belonging to sodium family. This is also belonging to sodium family. Then if we talk of potassium family, only this salt out of all the given is belonging to the potassium family. Then out of all these salts which are given, this belongs to magnesium family. Then ammonium family, only this is ammonium family. Then chloride family, this is chloride family, and this is also belonging to the same chloride family. Then sulfate, this first, second, third, fourth, fifth all belong to sulfate family. Nitrate family is NaNO3 belongs to nitrate family. So this activity is all about understanding salt and making you aware that salts are made up of two components, acid and base. In case the acid used is strong and base also used is strong, we find that the salt is neutral in nature. Acid, base and nature of salt. If this is strong, nature of salt is neutral. If this is weak, nature of salt is neutral. If acid is strong, base is weak, we find acidic salt. In case acid is weak and base is strong, we get a basic salt. So one should remember this table also. This table should be there in your mind every time. Then moving ahead, activity for 2.14. This activity says that collect the following salt samples. They are sodium chloride. Just a moment. Then they are sodium chloride, potassium nitrate, aluminium chloride, zinc sulfate, copper sulfate, sodium acetate, sodium carbonate, sodium hydrogen carbonate. And we need to check the solubility of these salts in water. For checking the solubility of salts in water, one thing we should always remember is the formula that like dissolves like. Simple words में this means that polar solvent will dissolve polar solute. Now they are asking that the solvent is water here. Water is H2O, which can be broken into two parts, H ion and OH ion. That means two poles are there. Poles means a positive part and a negative part. Any salt in this whole thing, whatever examples they're saying, we'll find what salts are polar in nature. For example, if we talk of NaCl, NaCl has two parts, Na and Cl. That means this is polar, this is also polar. So NaCl is soluble in water. Potassium nitrate, K2NO3, has two parts, K part and NO3. This is polar, so it is going to dissolve in polar solvent. Aluminium chloride, AlCl3, again has two parts, positive and negative. Again it will be soluble in water. Zinc sulfate, ZnSO4, again has two parts, a positive part and a negative part. Again this is soluble in water. Copper sulfate, CuSO4, has two parts, positive and negative. Again it will be soluble in water, which is a polar solvent. Then sodium hydrogen carbonate is also polar in nature, NaHCO3, wherein Na is positive and HCO3 is negative. It will be soluble in polar solvent. Then they have asked to find the nature of salt, whether they are acidic, basic or neutral. Now now if we look at the salts which are given in activity 2.14, they are NaCl, which is sodium chloride, potassium nitrate, ammonium chloride, zinc sulfate, then copper sulfate, sodium acetate, sodium carbonate and sodium hydrogen carbonate. Along with we have taken one more example, sodium acetate. Sodium acetate is also there in the book. So these are all the examples and they're asking what acids and bases they are composed of. I think if you have been watching the video right from the beginning, you must be knowing by now that all the salts are composed of two components. One is acid and other is base, right? So depending upon whether the acid is strong or the acid is weak, we find that if the salt is neutral, acidic or basic in nature. Three kinds of salts are available. Now if we see NaCl, NaCl is made up of acid component which is HCl and basic component which is NaOH. Both being strong, we get a neutral salt. K2NO3. K2NO3 has a strong acid and a strong base, therefore the salt is again neutral. AlCl3 has a strong acid but a weak base, therefore the salt obtained is acidic in nature. ZnSO4 has a strong acid and a weak base, therefore salt obtained is acidic in nature. CuSO4 has a strong acid and a weak base, therefore salt obtained is acidic in nature. CH3COONA sodium acetate has a weak acid and a strong base, therefore the salt is basic in nature. Na2CO3 has a weak acid, carbonic acid, and a strong base, therefore the salt is basic in nature. NaHCO3 has a weak acid, carbonic acid, and NaOH which is a strong base, therefore the salt is basic in nature. Now we move ahead to activity, the last activity of the chapter, which is activity 2.15. If you have watched my video earlier, I've already explained you about the water of crystallization. Now here in this experiment, we have taken a test tube, and in this rather a boiling tube we have taken, it is made up of a stronger glass which does not crack on boiling. So in this test tube we have taken blue colored copper sulfate crystals. Now these copper sulfate crystals, when they are heated over the Bunsen flame, water is evaporated out. What we had not taken any water, we had taken dry crystals of copper sulfate, but we see after heating it, some water droplets deposit on the cooler sides of the test tube. Why has this happened and from where has this water come? This water is actually 5 molecules of water which are present as water of crystallization in copper sulfate crystals. Now when we heat this blue colored copper sulfate crystal, they become white in color, releasing the water of crystallization from them. Now these water droplets are deposited on the cooler sides of the test tube. Once we put a few drops of water on this copper sulfate, which has now become white in color, again if we put water onto this white colored copper sulfate, we see a change in color to blue again. Right, these are all the activities which I concluded in 2 parts. Part 1 contained activity 2.1 to 2.7, and this part is having activities 2.8 to 2.15. Happy learning!